is that I think a lot of Norwegian entrepreneurs like to get their proof of concept here, and they see Norway as a very good, test market.
Yes.
To get their first customers and validation.
Yeah.
And then we are working to get more of them on the plane to go outside of Norway.
Hans Christian, it's great to finally meet you in person. Thank you so much for having us here.
Thank you for being here. It's about time you came to visit Oslo and the factory.
I know, and we chose a beautiful day because the weather is fantastic today, so we're very happy to be here. So just before we start, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. So my name is Hans Christian Bjørne, and I'm the co-founder here at the factory, accelerator and VC. We are running Norway's largest accelerator program in Norway right now, with about 40 companies twice per year. So it's been a ride. I've been here for the last 6 years, and before that I was kind of starting in Seattle back in 2000 was my first meeting with entrepreneurship when joining a AI and machine learning and music technology startup. And that's when I fell in love with entrepreneurship and haven't got rid of it since.
Right.
So I experienced the rise and fall of .com back then. We actually had a very exciting ride of developing the world's first sort of audio-based identification tool for music. A bit like Shazam, that you probably know. And we sold that to a company in California, and which is serving Apple with those products that we made back then.
Right.
So that was my first ride and kind of exit in that game, and then I came back here, continued being an entrepreneur in the video publishing industry, and then I've been working in the Nordic field for quite a few years, 7 years on Nordic collaboration, in venture and seed capital and startup scene. So that sort of gave me a nice foundation and a network to be joining the Factory Accelerator as we started it together with Ingar, my colleague and the CEO here.
Okay, then I'm curious to know a little bit more about the Norwegian mindset towards entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
So tell us how do Norwegian people think about starting businesses and growing them?
Well, I guess there's been a shift in the last few years. It's definitely become much cooler to become entrepreneurs than it used to be. I think for many years people chose to go the safe route and join the big corps. Yeah. Now for the last 5-6 years, there's been a tremendous shift in the market, and we've seen the Norwegian and Oslo-based startup scene basically flourish a lot. So I guess you could say that we kind of came late to the party, if you could put it that way. I mean, we had, if you look at Sweden and Denmark and Finland, maybe you have been slightly ahead, and particularly maybe Stockholm with their Spotifys and the Klarnas and Candy Kings and some of those tremendous successes, as you know, is often refueling the ecosystem. We haven't really had those yet, so we are still a young startup ecosystem here in Norway, but I think it's a really exciting market. There's so much going on in the early stages. Yeah. So I think actually there could be some really great opportunities for international investors to come and look to Oslo and the other Norwegian cities right now. So I guess it's been much cooler to be an entrepreneur these days, and we see much more young people and also adult people taking down that route. Of course, it will be interesting to see what happens the next year or two, because there's a shift in the market again. So things may be a bit more conservative, but it's been some exciting years for sure.
Yes, indeed. Now, tell me a little bit about how do Norwegian entrepreneurs think about scalability? Because we know that the markets in the Nordics tend to be small. In the addressable market, it tends to be small. So how do they perceive starting businesses in Norway? How do they think about scaling those businesses?
It's a really good question. I think we are working at the factory. We provide early stage accelerator program where we try to help them to address the right problems and go to market and have big visions. We've really been fortunate to work with a lot of great entrepreneurs, and we see that some of them have this global mindset from early on and from day one. Though I have to say that maybe the majority has been more on an incremental scale, you know, that they like to sort of test out things in the home markets before going abroad and going international. And like you pointed out, Norway, like Denmark, is a small country, like the rest of the Nordics pretty much. So if you're in the B2C game, it goes without saying, you cannot survive in that small market. If you're in the B2B game, which we see a lot of Norwegian fintechs are, then you can survive or grow for quite some time to get your really proof of concept. So I guess that was my long answer. The short answer is that I think a lot of Norwegian entrepreneurs like to get their proof of concept here, and they see Norway as a very good, you know, test market.
Yes.
To get their first customers and validation.
Yeah.
And then we are working to get more of them on the plane to go outside of Norway.
Right. And would you say that Norway has a particular competitive advantage when it comes to fintech?
Yes, to some extent, I would say so. I think maybe comparable to the rest of the Nordics in a sense. We are digital savvy populations, both on the consumer side, but also on the business side, of being early adopters to new technologies and you know, new ways of e-commerce and trade and all of these kind of things. I think we have a very value-based society and an open society. We see a lot of Norwegian fintechs being also addressing the United Nations SDGs and working with impact dimensions and often maybe being impact-driven. Which is why back in 2018, I believe it was, we had the first FinPact event here in Oslo, where we combined the fintech with impact. Yeah. So we had some great examples of that. I mean, I'd like to mention Empower.ico, really exciting Norwegian company, which is kind of hybrid environmental and fintech. Okay. So they are using blockchain technology to create a circular economy and deposit system for waste plastics around the world. So companies and individuals can donate money for cleanup of plastics around the world. Okay. And then they're using blockchain technology to trace the plastic per kilo collected, and then all the way back to new products.
Oh, that's really cool.
So you get the fintech element of it is, banking the unbanked population. Right. Using tokens and being able to, pay people across borders, and then they can exchange it back for local currencies. So that's the fintech element. And then, of course, they have collected tons of plastics. Yeah. Every day, basically, they are cleaning the beaches and the cities of waste plastic.
Very cool.
So it's becoming a movement. So I think that's a really cool example of, and they were now in Silicon Valley in one of the Extreme Tech Challenge finale in a global competition among impact startups. They started here at the factory, so kind of proud of them. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Now, is there any particular area within fintech that you see perhaps that Norwegian entrepreneurs are tackling more heavily than other Nordic markets?
Well, I think we've been in the business of identity and security for quite some time. One of the more successful Norwegian companies in that space is called Signicat. And it's among the European leaders of digital signing and identity. Was founded in Trondheim, a city a bit up north here in Norway. And is now, becoming one of the standards in the Nordics and in Europe. We also have Swiipe, which is using biometry for digital security on credit cards. Yeah. And we see more companies working in that space, and cap securities and others. So definitely that. Other than that, definitely payments. You've probably heard of Viips, which of course is sort of, it was spun out by DNB, the Norway's largest bank, but it was soon owned by most of the banks of Norway, and then it merged with Bank ID and others, and now you can use, well, it's basically a mobile payment solution, which started as a peer-to-peer payment solution where you could pay people by their phone number instead of their bank account. And it was really smooth, you know, and they were able to get a great uptake. So now they have 4 million users in Norway, in a market where we are about 5.5 million people. So they basically own the market.
Absolutely.
And then they have, you know, ventured into what do you call invoice payments and e-commerce solution for checkout solutions. So they basically do a broader suite of things. So they are definitely dominant in that space, but we also have other exciting Norwegian fintechs working in the payment space, like Settle and like ZTL payments. Dintero and others. So we see that as a sort of coming vertical. So I mentioned security and signing payments. Definitely also crypto, like Firi, which we are also proud of, one of our portfolio companies. Started with us 3 years ago. They were 3 employees. Now they have been up to 70 employees and really growing the market. I think they have 120,000 users in Norway now. So we see that with also some analytical companies like Dune Analytics and Nansen.ai, providing real-time data on crypto and NFTs. So I guess that kind of sums up. We see a growth in all the verticals, basically. When we started the factory, or back then we were called Fintech Factory, because we were only doing fintech then. That was in 2016. There were about 34 fintechs in Norway. And now we are, 6 years later, we have around 180. So it's been a growth in all.
Substantial growth.
By numbers, at least. We still wait for the scaling. That's sort of the what we need to work on to get more of the fintechs to scale.
And then tell me a little bit, what are the main challenges that you see for scaling those companies, or that the entrepreneurs find themselves facing when they're trying to scale?
I think, like I said, Norway is a rather young tech startup ecosystem. So we need to go the ladder of experience, and we need to get the gold Olympic medalists in the tech game. The really big successes to come home. We now have to reinvest. We've had a few unicorns in the last couple of years, but so it's maturing. But you need those idols. You need somebody to come back and show the way. We haven't had that, so that sort of creates a bit of a scaling barrier, I guess, when you don't have the really successful mentors reinvesting yet. And you also have a slightly less developed venture capital scene, which is really growing. I mean, in the early stages. So I guess if you look at the seed capital is fairly well available in the public financing in the early stages. But when you get into the scaling and growth, it's more limited availability of financing. So I guess that's the main limitation for scaling and growing. Which is why we need to collaborate closer with guys like you and others and work Nordic. I think.
All right, and now tell me a little bit about how the factory helps entrepreneurs and startups develop their ideas, their concepts, launch their companies, and then eventually scale.
Sure. So we do a lot of things. We have accelerated around 250 companies since we started. Now just about to start our 14th program. So starting to get some experience in that game. We are working from the idea stage, from the very pre-seed, maybe even before they set up their companies.
Right.
Sometimes.
Okay. Very early.
Sometimes they have set up a company and have a small team, and they can join our programs. So we have Gründer Academy, which is Norway's largest accelerator program, running twice per year.
Okay.
And that's where you learn how to fundraise, you learn how to pitch, you learn how to fall in love with your problem. Rather than your solution, all of these things. So that's a 3-month accelerator run. That's one thing we do, that's the Factory Academy. Then we have the Factory Growth, which is more of a member community, where we provide help with connecting you with investors, with board members, with mentors, and with soft funding opportunities. Yeah. If you use that term, governmental funding. So we can help with the grant writing and planning of public funding and private funding mix. What's the ideal strategy? Yeah. We also we invested now in 51 companies, and we normally take a board position in the companies until we replace ourselves with another professional board member for that particular company. And then we work also with our corporate partners to try to match the startups with piloting opportunities and commercial opportunities. And we're part of the Nordic Fintech Alliance and the collaboration with Copenhagen Fintech and Fintech in Stockholm and Helsinki Fintech Farm and Reykjavik Fintech. Right. So I guess you could say we help in a lot of ways. Try to help where we can. Yeah.
Okay, and let's just to close the conversation, tell us what's your vision for the Norwegian startup ecosystem?
Well, for the startup ecosystem, it's definitely to becoming stronger, keep on growing. I think we have had a lot of great momentum and a lot of new players coming in, both public and private accelerators and support schemes, and more investors and family offices and others getting engaged. So it's been really fun to follow and traction that early startup ecosystem. Yep. I think going forward we need to go global, take it to the next level. Learn from you guys a bit. I mean, talking about the guys in Copenhagen Fintech have been really great at establishing international contacts across the globe. I think it's time to have more focus on international growth, which is why we are launching now a Nordic Fintech Fast Track program for Norwegian entrepreneurs. Yeah. To sort of help them. We will go to Nordic Fintech Week, of course, in September, and we'll have some reflection sessions and networking sessions going on over there. Then we'll try to put together a Nordic Investor Day for these Norwegian fintechs, with family offices and others, and then we plan to do the whole Nordic trip. It's basically to connect the startups. Yeah. I guess that's it. I mean, we need to just become more international in our mindset and get on that plane and build the relations. Right. I think, yeah.
Well, I have to say that so far the various fintechs that we've met here, we've been blown away by the ingenuity and by the way they solve problems, and the mix of just how humble they are. Yeah. They're like, we go about doing this, but we really have been really impressed with the quality of the thinking, the quality of the companies that they've launched, and specifically just how they are tackling some really hard to solve problems in the various industries. So
they are. Yeah. And it's a difficult industry to operate in. Yeah. It's heavily regulated.
It is.
All of these things. So we too are very proud of all the entrepreneurs that are trying to make a better world out there. Yeah. And especially the ones that are, combining these kind of financial problems with the impact. Yes. That's really fascinating, I think, And we see that these new technologies can actually have a big difference. And I think we're going to see more of that going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this whole idea of shared value, where they can still be profitable and then use their capabilities to solve a problem that is a societal problem. It's a really interesting mashup, and it's fascinating to see from the outside.
So if you're curious about what's going on up here north, if I may, we just made this new magazine called Startup Beat, Fintech Up North. It can be downloaded at thefactory.no. It will give you the glimpse of the Norwegian fintech scene. Okay. You will see it all
Great. Well, thanks very much for hosting us, and it's been great meeting you. Thank you so much.
Great to have you. See you in Copenhagen.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.